Poor life.
Mmm. I'm in the middle of eating pickles. And these pickles are old. They're like 2 years old, lacto fermented, house made, but they're just absolutely delicious because they've been stored under the right conditions. And the reason that I have a hankering for pickles is that I'm making shakshuka. And for anybody who has ever spent any time in the Levant, and especially in Israel, pickles are such a big part of the food scene there. So it's impossible for me to think of shakshuka, which is what I want to make for Mother's Day this year. I want you to make it for Mother's Day this year. We're going to whip it up really fast in a second. But it gets me craving other things. And I think that's one of the great, wonderful things about food, is that once something comes to mind, it sends you down 1,000 wonderful little rabbit holes of pleasure. So I've got my stack of pickles here that I will be dining on. What to make for Mother's Day? Do something out of the ordinary. Do something fun. Shakshuka looks great. It feeds a big crowd. So, you know, it's not just about bringing mom breakfast in bed. It's about maybe setting a great table, putting some flowers on there, surprising her, bringing her in. Rest of the family is there. You can make it for 2 people or you can make it for 20 people. Super, super easy. Sauce is great. The technique is wonderful. Everybody loves an alternative egg dish. And this one is fantastic. Get a big thing of crusty bread, and I should insist that if you live in a part of the country where you have access to yellow tomatoes, my favorite shakshuka, and I make it here in Minnesota in the summer, is I actually peel yellow tomatoes, about 4 or 5 pounds worth, pass it through a food mill, and use that instead of red tomatoes, and I get eggs from the farmer's market with those like bright orange yolks, and the look of that dish is spectacular. Another piece of information about my shakshuka, I made my shakshuka the same way, I don't know, for 8 years or so. And then I read a friend of mine who made it. I had theirs and it was delicious, it had feta cheese on it. And I said, where'd you learn? Yeah, feta cheese, brilliant. Why didn't I think of that? And I love feta and tomato. I do a dish, it's on my website, called garidi saganaki. It's a Greek dish with shrimp in a sauce that's similar with lots of feta, and it cooks under the broiler. And you should look it up, andrewzimmern.com. It's a killer weeknight shrimp recipe, super easy, meal in a skillet. Serve it with potatoes seasoned with olive oil and salt. But I digress. My friend had feta on it, and I said, oh, that's such a cool idea. And they were like, yeah, Melissa Clark. And I was like, oh yeah, Melissa Clark. New York Times Melissa Clark, many books Melissa Clark, like one of the queens of cooking, and someone who I love. And I was like, well, if Melissa Clark does it, that blesses it for me. But yeah, let's get started. And once we get this cooking, we'll have plenty of time to chitty chat. I hope everybody had a great week. Welcome to AZ Cooks, the Instagram quarantine edition. I have a pan here that I am putting on medium heat. I'm going to add a healthy glug of olive oil. And the reason is really simple. I want olive oil flavor in this dish. And I'm going to start by cutting big pieces of shallot. Some people do their shakshuka with onion. If you don't have shallot, go ahead and do it with onion. If you don't have shallot or onion, do it with leek or chive or anything else in the alum family. But I like to bite into big pieces of cooked shallot. There's something about what shallots do when they're paired with tomatoes that I really, really dig. And I love shallots with eggs. So we're going to get those simmering. 1 hot chili. If you do not like things spicy, eliminate it. A lot of people, I mean, you're eating this in Israel, they put a big bottle of hot sauce down at the table to eat with your shakshuka. I happen to love serrano chilies. And I love the fact that the seeds and the cores of serrano chilies taste almost vaguely citrusy. So I mince one up. put that. You can tell this is a quarantine edition because I can't find my bench knife. And I'm just going to let those cook along. I want those shallots to get soft. I'm going to add some garlic. And what I don't want to do is I don't want to add my garlic too soon. The reason being is that I don't want my garlic to brown. God, that's a massive clove of garlic. I think I just need this one clove. But I'm just going to slice that. I do like garlic flavor with this dish. And I'm just going to put that on top of one of my pieces of shallot. It's a little trick that I do all the time. If I put it into the oil, it may burn before my other stuff has a chance to cook. I do the same thing sometimes with spices. I just want to get everything into the pan and get that thermal momentum going. I'm actually going to season this with salt now so that the shallot divests itself of its liquid. But that way the garlic is warming, and once I start to stir it around, it'll cook. I don't have to worry about the garlic burning. What else do I want to put in here? Oh yes, so a red pepper, right? If you want to roast it, just do so on an open flame. A nice high flame here. I'm just going to put that red pepper there. It takes about 5 minutes. Pop it into a bowl. Throw a piece of plastic wrap over it so that it holds the heat. It helps it sweat off the skin. Makes it easier to peel. And the reason that I like adding freshly charred pepper rather than canned pepper is that the canned pepper or pimentos have too much acid in them. They are acidulated during the canning process. A canned charred pepper has as much relationship to a real charred peeled pepper as me standing in your garage makes me your car. The other thing that I don't do is I do not clean it under running water. Why do I not clean it under running water? Well, then I wash away all the char that's on the surface of this. So what I do is I take a paper towel, I get it wet, and I literally strip the skin off with a damp paper towel. And you can do that right into the bowl. And the reason that I do that is that I'm not losing all of that incredible charred flavor, which is the whole reason that I've charred the pepper to begin with, is I want that incredible charred flavor. The other thing that I don't do, I don't get into analysis paralysis about getting every little bit of skin off. In fact, now that it's charred, I actually want some of that charred skin in there because it gives so much flavor to this dish. And you just pull apart the lobes, and you can just pull the seed pod right out. When this goes away, you can use a little bit of water to rinse your fingers, and you're back in business. And now I have this beautiful charred pepper that I'm going to cut into thin strips. And there is nothing better than that charred pepper flavor to eat with your eggs in a shakshuka. Everyone always thinks it's tomatoes that define a shakshuka. It's actually, I think, the tomato-pepper combination, and therefore, ergo, the pepper. Now, this one back here, you can see when I put it on the flame that it blackens. All you have to do is just keep turning this. Shut that off so I don't forget it. And it chars up in just a few minutes. So, this is now ready for my pepper, which I put onto the corner here. And the reason I do that is I want to toast some of those spices that I'm putting in on the other side before I add my tomatoes. Paprika, ground cumin. Recipe is on my website at andrewzimmern.com. Ground coriander seed. Salt. And I'm using this really cool salt from Badia. It's wine salt. I hate gimmick foods. I know. I'm guilty as hell. But this Merlot salt is almost grapey, and it goes so well with this dish. I experimented with it earlier in the week, and it's just absolutely fantastic. One of those gimmick foods that's good. Black pepper, lots of it. And then I'm going to take my scissor. These are whole canned tomatoes, imported ones, domestic ones. As long as they taste good, that's okay. And rather than dump it into a bowl and chop them and get tomato stuff everywhere, I love scissors. My favorite tool in the kitchen is a good pair of scissors. Want to make sure my seed spices that are ground don't
So we
burn.
have a question.
Yeah, fire away.
Have you ever tried to make your own Merlot salt?
Never. I just never have enough Merlot lying around to do it. But they basically combine salt and reduce wine, let it dry. It's wonderful. All right, this is chopped up. In goes my 28 ounces of tomatoes. And if you have a couple pieces at the top there that you didn't get cut up enough, there you go. Then a little bit of red wine. And we're going to let that cook. Now, that has to simmer and reduce. It takes about, oh gosh, depends what temperature and the size of your pan. I have a nice wide 12-inch slope-sided saute pan here. Just want it nice and incorporated sauce. I want to see the watery liquid disappear. I want it to be thick and tight, because what we're going to do is, once it's reduced all the way, we're going to put our eggs on the top of this and bake this for about 7 or 8 minutes until the dish is done. Those eggs are set nice and runny in the middle with cooked whites. So that's got about 10 minutes. So it is question time. Fire away. What do you got?
What do you prefer cooking over, electric versus gas stove, and why?
I prefer gas. In my kitchen at home, I have both. And one of the things that was the big complaint about electric from years ago is that it didn't get hot enough fast enough. It didn't cool down fast enough. Now with the technology that they have, it's unbelievable. The thermal control that you have with electric. It's safer with kids. There's a lot of people who choose it for a lot of reasons. It can also, it goes flat on a center island if you want to put your kitchen in a center island. But the one thing that home cooks forget is I've watched this. If they think that it's too hot and they're dying to turn it down and they're fumbling with everything and they hear the thing beeping, all you have to do is just move the pan. Move the pan, whether it's gas or electric. So I think both are fantastic. Gun to my head, gas. Next.
Are all hot sauces the same?
Not all hot sauces are the same. In fact, well, I'm a hot sauce lunatic. I must have, well, at one point I counted and I had about 200, and I brought at least 100 bottles into the office and put them in the area where people congregate so they could take some home, because I get, if you say things enough in public, like I love hot sauce, everyone sends you their hot sauce. But I also buy a lot of hot sauce and I make a lot of hot sauce. That being said, and this is just the truth. This is not sponsored. I've never even spoken to anyone from this company. But Crystal hot sauce is my favorite hot sauce ever. I could drink it. I love the balance between the heat, which it's not that hot, and the flavor of it. It's just absolutely remarkable.
Is there a secret to making the perfect Eggs Benedict?
Yes. The secret to making the perfect Eggs Benedict is, I mean, look, if you can't toast an English muffin, I can't help you. But poaching an egg is very specific, and we actually have great tutorial videos on andrewzimmern.com that show you how to poach an egg properly. swirling the water, acidulated water with vinegar so that egg balls up nice and tight, and don't overcook it. And the other thing, to me, what makes or breaks Eggs Benedict is the Hollandaise sauce. We have a foolproof, and I think we have a video of it, a video recipe of my no-fail Hollandaise, which is literally one of my favorite recipes that I've ever developed. It is truly no-fail Hollandaise of the highest order. What else you got?
What's your most used ingredient in the kitchen that people might say you use too much?
The ingredient, easy. Everyone who's close to me tells me I cook with mussels too much of the time and fennel too much of the time. It is the fennel jokes in my house. I could put fennel, minced, diced, shaved paper thin, and I just love it. It's taste. I love licorice and anise flavors, and I love crunchy, wet green vegetables. So it's like fennel is. I always have a couple bulbs of fennel. I put it in everything. Everyone says stop with the fennel.
What is your favorite go-to knife?
Look, a lot of chefs are going to lie to you. We all have knife fetishes. It's like guitarists with guitars. I have hundreds, some of which I've paid a lot of money for, some that I haven't. I have a couple really, really special knives from really incredible bladesmiths around the world that I treasure. I literally treasure. I pick them up and I just love them. Commercial knives. Best bang for the buck is Mac Knives, M-A-C. I think they're only sold online. I think it's mackknife.com, M-A-C. I happen to love Shun knives, the dual cores, right? Shun makes a line of knives, and I wonder, I'm sure I have one somewhere in one of our knife blocks here. But anyway, it's stainless on the outside, but the core is carbon steel, which holds a really nice edge, but you have to sharpen it a lot. I love my Shun dual cores. I haven't met a good knife that I don't like, but I'm also at the point in my life where I've kind of stopped buying unless I see something really, really special.
What is the type of cutting board on your counter?
This is an old boost block, a little thinner than the big ones that they make now, and I love it. And the reason that it's a little darker is because every couple of months we sand it down, and we oil it, and we take care of it. So it's why it doesn't have that typical blonde boost block look. Some people, I saw a little chat online with some people saying that boost blocks crack. They crack if you don't treat them properly. All cutting boards should be wiped down with hot water. They should be sanded regularly. They should be oiled regularly. You have to treat them like your skin. They constantly have, it's wood. So in wintertime in Minnesota, they get super, super dry. So if you let them get wet and just sit out, they're gonna crack.
What is your favorite recipe to add fennel to?
Oh my God. My big thing with fennel right now, and I've actually stopped because we're now into warm weather. It's spring here, it's 70 degrees. But all winter long, I do a gratin of fennel. I poach quartered fennel bulbs in honey, water, stock, and some aromatics. Take them out, dry them, and then I put them with cream and Gruyere cheese and leeks and in a gratin dish and bake them. And I eat that cold at night alone in my kitchen, standing at 3 in the morning with the harsh light of the cracked refrigerator door shining on my shame. But yeah, it's really fucking good. Oh, sorry, it's really good.
5 ingredients you think Americans should have in their kitchen.
5 ingredients that everyone should have in their kitchen. All kinds of different chilies. I love lots of vinegars. Acids are really, really important, and I have found, if you don't have lemons or limes, but you have a great collection of vinegars, you can usually replicate something pretty darn good. A splash of vinegar in a super stew just makes it come alive. So I love that. What else? I collect pastas, noodles from all over the world, and I buy them online. I just love having an international world of noodles at my disposal. It's really, really makes for super quick meal making. What else do I have a lot of? I have a lot of mustards at home. A lot of mustards, a lot of vinegars. Yeah, big spice cabinet. The more pantry items you have, the greater the variety of things you can cook with, and the more culinary ethnic directions you can take something into. And the key, and I'm not a Marie Kondo junkie, but the key to keeping a lot of things in your pantry is going through it every couple of months, and the stuff that is the oldest, you have to use it and get rid of it.
What's your favorite cooking oil or fat?
Oh my God. You said the magic word, which is fat. I mean, I love olive oil. I cook with it a lot. I happen to be OG. I mean, butter is the new olive oil, right? And it's always been that way. I love butter. I love the flavor of butter. I cook with brown butter a lot. I make a brown butter vinaigrette for salads, for gosh sakes. I mean, I love brown butter and love butter. But recently I've been working a lot just with recipes that have a lot of chickens and ducks, and I've accumulated a lot of schmaltz again, and I've forgotten how good. I just roasted potatoes and duck schmaltz. Maybe while this is in the oven, I'll show you the tubs of duck schmaltz that we have here in our test kitchen that I just love playing around with. Spectacular fat. All right, hold on 1 second on the questions. We have achieved almost what we're looking for here. We're just getting a little puddling on the top of what I call water as opposed to a thicker puree. And one of the ways that you can tell is that you take a spoon and you draw it, and this is one of the drawbacks of IG Live. We can't necessarily show this perfectly, but if you push with your spoon across the pan, watch how quickly the liquid returns to it. Imagine if this was water. I would move my spoon and I'd never see the bottom of the pan. The water would just fill it right away because water has very little viscosity. But once you stir your sauce together and you see how much water is there, how much of it are thickened juices, that's a great indicator. But if you push across the bottom of the pan, you watch how slowly or quickly it takes to fill that in, that's a good one. The other key is you make sure to taste it. Once the eggs are in, your tasting opportunities are over. Oh, that's good. Wow. Perfect. Vicky, you're a vegetarian, right?
No.
You're not? I thought you were. What do you eat? Do you eat everything?
Everything.
Absolutely everything. Everything. We're going to love the shakshuka then. Why did I think you were a vegetarian? I don't know. Okay. I just don't want tomato to burn once I put it in the oven. And most importantly, those spices that are in there. So we're just going to set this here and turn off the heat. All right. Now, super important. I have a garbage bag below me for shells. My eggs, one at a time. And on the very first one, I got a piece of shell in there. That's why you put your egg into a cup and you figure out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and one in the center. So let's do the one in the center first. And what I do is I just take a spoon and I make a little depression so that the yolk sits there properly, right? I mean, that's really what we're looking for, is a proper place for our yolk. Because that's the star of the dish, right? Are these eggs. Just make a depression And the reason that you do that depression is that so there's space between the whites. I mean, look, if you don't get it perfect and it comes out of the oven, the whites are going to be cooked. You can just push some of them out of the way. By the way, these are jumbo eggs. I usually do mine with large. Bigger is not always better. And one of the reasons is that in a pan like this, I like to get 5, 6 eggs in, but you don't want to cover the whole top with egg.
Do you put any sugars or carrots to the dish to give it some sweetness?
You don't need to with this. Those red bell peppers have all the sweetness in the world. The grapiness of the wine has sweetness. Tomatoes are very acidic, but they have sweetness. And those spices bring out a lot of sweetness in this. And you're going to have crusty bread with it that's pretty darn sweet. I would not describe this dish as unsweet. How's that? Okay, now, here's my favorite part. I'm going to wash my hands. You can crumble the feta on afterwards. Just make sure it's room temperature. It's nice, it's milky, but I love it when little bits of feta kind of char on the top of this. So what I want to do is I'll probably do both. I take 3 or 4 ounces of feta, and I want to sprinkle this where the eggs aren't, right? Don't cover up your yolk. Right, so we're just gonna sprinkle that cheese around. God, I love the flavors of this dish. All right. And then this goes into our oven. You know, if your eggs are room temperature, and by the way, I like to make sure mine come to room temperature. This dish only needs to cook in the oven for 6 or 7 minutes until the whites are set and the yolks are hot.
Can you serve this dish with rice or potatoes?
You know what's great with this dish? Steamed new potatoes that you've then cooled and crisped. Delicious. In Israel, I eat this dish with French fries all the time. It's wonderful, and in that spicy tomatoey sauce is absolutely remarkable.
What's the all-time favorite Zimmern family food tradition?
All-time favorite Zimmern family food tradition is shaming somebody on Sunday night who doesn't go for thirds on the takeout Chinese. Here's the truth. My parents divorced when I was young, not uncommon. I lived alone with my mother. We had some really amazing food traditions, she and I. She would make, she roomed with Trader Vic Bergeron's daughter, one of his daughters, at Mills College in the 40s. And Vic Bergeron taught them how to cook. So she was the only housewife in our neighborhood, to maybe in all of New York, making Polynesian food at our house, which I used to love. And it gave me a passion for adventure when it comes to food. She had a huge garden at a time when it wasn't a big deal because her grandmother had a victory garden when she was growing up. And so we would garden, and she would make ratatouille and gazpacho almost every other day. And those became really beautiful traditions for us. My dad, who was an incredible cook, but he was the big traveler, gave me my love for traveling around the world, but then he would come back to the city and want to cook the things that we'd eaten. So the types of food traditions with my dad were big project foods. Once a year, he would do a whole breast of veal. Once a year, my dad would do an entire breast of veal. We'd do veal Prince Orloff, which is one of those like classic old school dishes that involves making a sous vide and a duxelle and stuffing the breast and multiple cooks and roasting and finishing and it was he would love to spend all day in the kitchen on Sunday cooking, and that's what I do too. So I have amazing food memories from my family. Oh, Thanksgiving was always a big deal too. So was Seder, my two favorite meals of the whole year.
What's the most underrated cut of meat?
The most underrated cut of meat, the necks. Turkey necks and chicken necks, oh my God, braised with gravy, insane. Lamb necks, goat necks, hog necks, braised and then roasted or twice cooked or slow smoked or roasted for 9-10 hours till the meat just falls off the bone. Some of the most flavorful meat on the animal is in the neck, up towards the cheeks, in around the shoulders. Spectacular.
What's your favorite Minnesota hot dish?
Oh my God. Well, there are a couple. Tater tot hot dish, classic. Ground beef and onions, frozen green beans, cream of mushroom soup, tater tots is the one that we certainly eat the most of. I'm a big fan of tuna noodle casserole, which is mixed together. Hot dishes are layered. There's something called wagon wheel hot dish that I've made a couple times that I really like. Homemade chili, or if you don't want to make it yourself, that's okay. But I make homemade chili and I put it in a 16-inch skillet, about 1.5 inches deep. Then I take my cornbread recipe, you can use box if you want to, and you put that over the top. Then you take a half tomato, cut side up, and you stick it in the middle. That's the spoke. And then you take hot dogs, and if you have a big skillet, sometimes it's 2 hot dogs, and you make spokes in the dough of the cornbread, and then you bake the thing for 45 minutes. And when it comes out, it looks like a wagon wheel, and everybody sits down and you dish it up. And I just think the way it looks, the story, the layering, I mean, who doesn't like the idea of wagon wheel hot dish? I mean, come on.
What's the most
Oh,
challenging?
by the way, anybody who just, I mean, the recipe's simple. Anyone who makes wagon wheel hot dish and sends me a recipe, we're going to post it and let you know what you think, what we think. You'll have my undying respect as well.
Most challenging dish you've ever made?
Wow. Most challenging dish I've ever made would have to be certain really ambitious desserts. Bûche de Noël, right? Or croquembouche. Some of the classic display pastries in French cooking. It was the kind of stuff that was the reason I left cooking school, right? I went to cooking school for a hot minute. I mean, literally, like a day and a half. This was back in the 70s, okay? So they were still teaching a lot of food from, old European chefs were cooking food, teaching food, using, chalkboards, right? It wasn't the way schools were today, more interactive. And I had already traveled a lot with my dad, so I knew the world was filled with real food adventure. And I didn't want to be a corporate chef. I wanted to be a great cook. I wanted to have a restaurant. And so that was more like rock band stuff. You just get in the van and you just play night after night after night. And so what I did was I worked when I was a teenager, summers in restaurants out on Long Island. And then I would spend a lot of time when I was kicked out of school. I spent a lot of time kicked out of college, working in Europe and Asia, and just eventually came back with a skill set that was good, but I never got in. I ran away from like those fancy pastes, but like any other chef, at a certain point, you want to make a croquembouche tower this big. You want to make, île flottante or stuff like that is easy, but making a bûche de Noël from scratch, everything from scratch, including the little mock mushrooms and everything, that takes a lot of skill, and I always blow that. All right, those have been in there now for 7 minutes, so let's see how we're doing. Turn on the light. I can see they're still not ready. Keep going.
Can you still use meat that is freezer burned?
No. Freezer burning is actually like freeze drying, except worse. You can defrost it, grind it, cook it, serve it to pets. If it has a little light freezer burning on the edges, yeah, of course. But if something is really messed up from freezer burn, you don't want to use it.
Have you messed up any meals during the quarantine?
Oh, quarantine? No. But that's, I mean, if you've been cooking your whole life, it's not like I go in there and I blow something and make a mistake. Now, I did make something the other night that didn't turn out exactly the way I wanted it, but it was still really delicious. So, and, you know, the family loved it. But I knew in my heart, I was like, oh, yeah, I would have liked to have done something a little differently with that. And some of it may have had to do with the duck that I bought a couple local ducks and I did a stir fry thing with it, and everyone demolished it. It was good. I ate all of mine. I thought the meat was a little tough.
Where are you filming right now?
Nowhere. There's nothing. Well, I shouldn't say that here. We've been doing cooking videos and stuff like that, but remember, social distancing and all the rest of that, I mean, we take that really seriously. We have a global pandemic going on right now, and people who don't believe that's a problem or believe that in some way this is some sort of hoax or some, you know, overreaction to something, we have 75,000 Americans dead. We're taking it really seriously here in Minnesota, and we flattened the curve, and that's great. But we take it really seriously, so we're not shooting. Now, that being said, just this week in our production company, our phone started to ring with our clients, vendors, buyers, networks, people that we're delivering shows to, wondering when in May we can do some controlled studio stuff. So our production company is shooting a pilot at the end of May, and we have plans to get back on the road shooting shows for our other networks with me in it, fingers crossed, in June.
Do you cook every night?
I cook every day, for sure. You know, sometimes I'm at work all day and then I go out to dinner with friends and go home. Obviously, La Quarantina, we're eating at home all the time, which I like. I hope that one of the things that happens as a result of the pandemic is that people understand that they should be eating a couple more meals at home than we probably were, spending more time with our loved ones, leaning into that happiness. I'm really liking going home and cooking every night and not having a dinner meeting to go to or a restaurant that I'm compelled to check out because I've got to go. There's some freedom in that, I think.
Best oyster you've ever had?
Oh my God. Wild Bellon off the coast of France. Some different varietals in the Pacific Northwest. I had the opportunity to harvest Fanny Bay oysters, an oyster I'm really in love with, and you know, big briny ones that have never, it literally out of the water, shuck, eat is pretty darn special. We're getting there. I think we have to check our oven. It's always a good idea. We keep, I have little metal thermometers, like grandma thermometers, because this has now been, 427, that's now been 12 minutes. The sauce was hot. Those whites should be set by this point, but they're not. But we have time. It's just going to be a couple more minutes, and it'll be the grand finale, and Vicky and I will eat it, and you'll all be inspired to make it.
What region of the U.S. does not get the respect it deserves when it comes to local cuisine?
Oh my gosh. I'm going to say Appalachia. People love the cuisine of the Southwest. They love the seafood and the cuisine of the Pacific Northwest. California cooking gets its day in the sun. New England, classic. The southeastern quarter of the United States is, I think, America's cuisine for a whole bunch of different reasons. We talked about that last week. The Midwest, America's bread bowl. I mean, while the coasts are just now into canning and pickling and preserving and making bread and all the rest of that, here in Minnesota, we're in the Midwest, we're in the heartland. We've never not done that. So I think that gets its due. But there is a corridor running the spine of those Appalachian Mountains. Backcountry holler cooking, old traditional recipes that are as much about frugality as they are about deliciousness, but boy, are they about deliciousness. I think that is America's cucina povera, right? The Italian translation is poor people's food, right? But it's a whole segment of cooking in Italy that has just a ton of respect, that sort of, peasant cooking, traditional cooking that everybody's in love with and chefs are in love with reimagining it. But we have that here in our country. I remember having homemade pepperoni rolls in someone's house, baked in West Virginia. And I'd had pan-fried squirrel with cream gravy for lunch. And, the biscuits that went with it were homemade. And there was birch syrup at the table. I mean, talk about take me back and really put a stamp on me. That was an incredible experience. And I think that food is probably the most underappreciated we have. A lot of foraging, a lot of small game. It's fantastic.
What are your tips on cooking on a budget?
Tips on cooking on a budget. Oh my gosh. Plan. I cook on a budget. I get it. I fully concede I'm a 1%er. I mean, full disclosure, right? But I have a budget for food, and I like to stick to it, so I have other things to do with, anyway, long and the short of it is, I write down the dishes, I make sure I have some cross-utilization of goods, I shop twice a week. My big shop is Friday or Saturday so that I can cook over the weekend and stock the fridge with lots of stuff. Steam new potatoes so I can either fry them or make potato salad. Stocks, soups in the freezer, pasta sauces, whatever it is. I load up the refrigerator and go. Salad dressings, things that you can do all day on the weekend that's fun, and then eat off it all week long. And if you do that, if you menu plan the right way with good cross-utilization, right? So instead of roasting a chicken for dinner, maybe I'll roast a 12-pound turkey once a month. And that'll be a meal with stuffing and gravy. You don't have to just have it at Thanksgiving. And then it's turkey salad and turkey sandwiches. And then there's soup with the frame and all the meat that comes off of it. So you get all these meals off of that one element. And that's how I think of almost everything. All right. Beautiful. All right, so I've got some fresh cilantro here. I want to put that all over this dish. God, does that smell yummy. And then let's serve this up. Let me get a bowl. Again, crusty bread. You can see the eggs will just lift out, and you can see right here the white is shiny, that yolk is still a little bit runny in there. The yolk in the center cracked. That was that shell that was in there. I'm gonna just set that to the side. The first one's always tough because you want to put some of that sauce and cheese in there, and then set this right in the middle. Like that, and there you go. That is a killer. Can you see that, Vicki? That is a beautiful, beautiful bowl of shakshuka, and Mom is gonna love it, and it's different, and you're gonna learn something by cooking it. Thoughts, complaints? Who's got a complaint? I don't want to hear it.
No complaints.
I don't want to hear it. All right, no complaints. So look, here's the deal. AZ Cooks. We're live on Instagram every Thursday, 5 o'clock Central, 6 o'clock Eastern, 3 o'clock Pacific. We've got a lot of really fun food coming up for you over the next couple of weeks. Send us some messages. Shoot us some whatever. Slide into our DMs. Better yet, go to info@andrewzimmern.com, because the people that work here, we read all that stuff, and let us know the food you'd like to see us make, maybe some of the things you'd like us to talk about, right? Do you want me to get on my political soapbox and lecture everyone for 15 minutes and get really angry? We could do that. Do you want me to reenact my favorite Gilbert and Sullivan operettas, maybe just a song or two? I bet you didn't know that when I was a child, I was a star at the Light Opera of Manhattan on the Upper East Side by the river. Gilbert and Sullivan repertory was my thing. I know. It was the 70s. My mom made me do it. There's a lot of things that we can share with each other. We could have a talent contest. Please be creative. Let us know what you'd like to see. Good answers will be responded to, or even better yet, we will make sure that those get done. AZ Cooks is back. I just love you people. Tell your friends. See you next Thursday. Thanks.